Hi, Daniel. Thanks for helping with my project.
No problem.
Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, well, as said, my name's Daniel. I'm from Los Angeles, California. My family's originally from England. If you notice a little bit of an accent, that's why. Been living in Houston for the past 5 or so years to go to school at Rice University. That's where we are right now. I did my undergraduate degree here in mechanical engineering. Right now I'm studying mechanical engineering once again for a master's degree. We'll be graduating this coming May, and after that I'll be working in aerospace at the Johnson Space Center.
That's awesome. What got you interested in space?
Well, I was interested in it as a kid. I saw the space shuttle Endeavour at the Science Museum in Los Angeles. That always piqued my interest, and I always loved watching science videos as a kid, and anything on YouTube or you know on TV. I think I lost a little bit of interest in middle school and high school. But then I started really enjoying calculus and physics, and that gave me a good foundation for studying engineering in college. And since then, I've gotten involved in the rocketry team, and kind of my interest in aerospace and astrophysics has peaked once again, and that's what ultimately led me to go to NASA for multiple internships.
Well, that's amazing. When did you find out that we were planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
I knew about the Artemis program I'd say in high school. I think I was in elementary school when Orion was being developed, but I had no clue what was going on at the time, probably say in middle school. And then in high school, we started to hear more concrete dates about when these Artemis missions would be created, when they would fly. So that definitely got me more interested, because when you could actually see what's coming ahead, and you really believe it's going to happen, that makes you more excited. Obviously, since then it's been pushed back significantly, but seeing the development of the rocket and also seeing things in tandem, I really remember watching the first Falcon Heavy launch by SpaceX in high school. Like, my teacher, instead of teaching math class, just had it on, seeing the boosters land at the same time. Obviously that's not SLS, but it made things more concrete that space was finally moving in a good direction, in an exciting direction. After my whole life, I saw the shuttle retire and not much replace it besides this development.
I mean, SpaceX is on track to do 90 launches this year. It's like amazing. That's almost like 2 a week.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I have friends who my friends who just graduated, a lot of them work in SpaceX. One of them does testing. He works in the, McGregor in near Waco, Texas, doing testing for the Falcon engines, specifically for the second stage. And they are working around the clock because they're constantly getting new hardware in, testing it, sending it out so it could fly. It's just 90 of those rocket launch. I don't know if it's 90 rockets because they reuse them, but 90 launches a year is rather insane.
It is. So whenever you talk to people about us going to the moon, whenever I talk to people about us going to the moon, people have questions. Why are we doing it?
Yeah.
That type of thing. What do you think would be the most compelling reason to convince people that it's a good idea?
Well, I think everyone has their own thing that would really convince them. A lot of people my age aren't super bought in on spaceflight because they see it as a waste of money and a waste of emissions. And I'm not going to deny that rockets take a lot of money to build and produce a lot of emissions, relative to each launch. So I think when it comes to spaceflight, there's a few things that I try to push, or there's a few reasons that I think it's really important. Number one is the technological benefit of doing it. There's always, in solving the problems for spaceflight, there's always a lot of other things we figure out, and key examples, GPS. I'm really excited to see us figuring out how to sustain long-term space habitats, like on Mars, en route to Mars, on the moon. I think that will have a lot of implications if we use the results correctly for how can we live more sustainably on Earth, how can we use our resources more efficiently and pollute less. The other one is the scientific development. There's really critical research going on in the ISS at this very moment. A big reason we're going back to the moon isn't just to plant a flag and leave. It's that we want to go specifically to areas which we think have the most scientific benefits, such as the South Pole, stay for an extended period of time, and conduct more science on the moon. I think that's really exciting. I think there's a lot of benefit we'll get from that. There's also kind of things we can't really predict right now that may help us down the line. I think one example that comes to mind is actually in this class that we take together, we've heard about mining helium-3 on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very exciting prospect because it's a way, it allows you to do, create energy via fusion with no hazardous byproducts. And it works extremely efficiently too. Obviously, there's a lot of gaps that before we're ready to do that, but I think if we're able to do science and pursue engineering and also general industry such as mining on the moon, that can have great benefit to Earth. Improving people's lives. If for example in that example we wouldn't need to produce as much energy with coal and oil and gas. We wouldn't need to mine as much where people are affecting their environment. So that matters a lot to me. I think that hits home for a lot of my generation. And the last thing I would say is that it's really cool. One important thing for spaceflight, for me at least, is that even if there's no benefit, it's still a really cool thing to do. To see humans like pushing the edge of what we can do and inspiring the next generation.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. When you think about where it might lead us, if you were to look at 200 years in the future, how far do you think we might get?
I think it's really hard to predict. I think there's a chance that we unfortunately go backwards. I have a lot of I have my skepticisms about whether we're going in the right direction as humanity, and isolated from space travel. I worry that sometimes we could be going in the wrong direction, and obviously if we decline, that will affect space travel. But I think there is a chance that we are able to have permanent habitats on the moon, on Mars, maybe beyond. I think one really interesting prospect is there are moons in the outer solar system which could be relatively, not Earth habitable, but could be potentially good places for us to build habitats. Some of the moons of Jupiter really ring a bell. Titan on Saturn's surface might also be a possibility. And some of these extraterrestrial worlds are places where we think there might be life. So exploring that is really exciting to me. So I think one possibility is we do actually find life outside of Earth in the next 200 years.
And with all these moons in close proximity around Jupiter and around Saturn, you could imagine having multiple settlements and kind of different places for people to live and things like this.
Right, not just like one base outside of Earth, the whole network. I think that's a really exciting prospect. But we have a long way to go before we get there.
If you could, would you take a trip to space?
I would. I don't know if I'm the ideal candidate for a test mission, one of the first to fly on a spacecraft. I'll admit I'd be very scared about that, though I think it might be worth it to take the risks. But especially with what we're seeing Falcon 9 progress into, it's something that's so much testing done on it, and so much and reliability built in the fact that it's used so many times. I trust that thing. I'd fly on it. I would love to go to space.
I mean, if Starship's flying 3 times a day and they have like thousands of them flying each year, I think a lot of people would be like, why not, huh?
Why not? Yeah. But I do think I would prefer to go to space if I was doing something. I have mixed feelings about space tourism. I think it generates revenue, which we use for important things. I don't know if we need to be sending a lot of people to space for no particular reason, producing a lot of emissions in the result or in the process. But I do also think, like when I said mining, I think there's a lot of things that we'll just need. There will be a whole space economy, and that will require workers to do. So a lot of people can go to space and do something that has practical benefit. At least that's what I hope. We'll see how things play out. But that would be how I would want to go to space. And I think as someone studying or going to be an aerospace engineer, specifically in the guidance, navigation, control area, my specialty could be an mission like planning trajectories and working with vehicle dynamics.
It sounds exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I am very excited for what's to come.
Well, those are pretty much the questions I had. Did you have any questions for me, or things you'd like to share with like future generations looking back at this video?
I would say when I was telling my story earlier, I mentioned that I was interested as a kid, and I really lost interest. I honestly didn't. When I was in like middle school, early high school, I didn't care about like anything in school, and I then refound it. So I would say it's okay if you not sure where you're going, where you're at. Just find things you're interested in, pursue them. Find people who are passionate about certain things, and talk to them about what they like. You'll learn a lot.
I think that's awesome advice. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time too.